Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. You're probably here to learn more about einkorn. Now, maybe you've heard that its simple gluten structure makes it easier to digest. Maybe you're here because of the purported health benefits, such as low glycemic index for diabetics, or high vitamin and mineral content, or prebiotic properties that suppose gut health. Or perhaps you're here about the sustainability of this ancient crop and its ability to thrive in poor soils without the addition of modern fertilizers. I'm here to tell you that despite all of those things, it's freaking delicious. And you should eat it because it tastes good and makes you happy. Now, einkorn is wheat, but without turning this into a full biology and history lesson, here's how the grain kind of works. First comes wild einkorn. This is a grass with little seeds going about its grassy business. Along comes some early humans, and they start collecting the seeds and realize they could be tasty, so they start planting them near their houses and they don't have to walk as far. This is about 10,000 years ago, and now you have cultivated einkorn. Now, einkorn crosses with some other wild grasses, and out comes a grain called emmer. And emmer turns out to be tasty as well, and is easier to grow and produces bigger berries, so becomes the favored crop. Emmer crosses with another wild grass and has spelt babies, and while at the same time mutates into durum wheat, where we get most of our pasta from. The spelt eventually mutates and turns into our bread wheat. After that, humans get all sciencey and really start mucking around in the gene pool, and my infographic gets way too complicated. So let's save that for another video. So in all of the crossbreeding and mutations, wheat gets pretty complicated. We bred it for numerous improvements, and einkorn as a species nearly went extinct. Fortunately, it did not, because just like some heirloom fruits and veggies are so much tastier than their modern equivalent, einkorn packs a delicious punch with a slightly sweet earthiness and distinct nuttiness. To the kitchen! Now, because of its low gluten content, einkorn is amazing for baked goods, as an addition to your regular loaf, or in this case today we're going to do a 100% whole grain einkorn loaf. Now this still has gluten in it, but if, like a lot of people, you have some sensitivities, and this lets you eat a really tasty loaf of bread, it can be a game changer. And it is super easy, despite what a lot of people think. So let's give it a go. Into our bowl, we are going to add 180 grams of bubbly einkorn starter. Now, normally I would just use my regular rye starter because I like the taste of it with the bread, but truth in advertising, I made a einkorn sourdough starter just for this video. So we're going to take about 180 grams in there of that. And if you've got a lot of extra starter, which I have done because I've been building this, don't worry, I've got an amazing cracker recipe. This can go into pancakes, this can go into muffins, this can go into English muffins, this can go into a whole bunch of different stuff. All right, to that we are going to add 400 grams of water. And give that a good stir around, kind of mix the starter up with your water there. Now, 600 grams of einkorn flour, whole grain einkorn flour. You can buy it from the store. This could probably work just fine if you had all-purpose einkorn flour, or in this case, I am just going to grind up some of my own. Safety first. Now, by no means do you have to grind your own flour, but fresh flour is tastier. And we have some lovely, warm, whole grain einkorn here. Into this, we are going with 600 grams of einkorn flour. Perfect. Okay, and finally, 12 grams of salt. just like so. Now, einkorn has a reputation for being really, really sticky, which is one of the reasons a lot of people stay away from it. However, this is meant to be a beginner loaf, so these ratios are going to do great for you, and if with a couple little tricks, you will have no problem. Now, if you're a more experienced bread maker, go ahead, play with the ratios, get a higher hydration rate in there, and see what you can do, but I have found this to be bulletproof. Just stir what you've got into a nice little shaggy mess, and once it comes together, and every little bit is mixed, you should end up with a nice little shaggy dough here. Let me grab this and now you can have a look. Just like that. And now stop and walk away. No, wait, don't walk away. Get yourself a cover, some plastic wrap, or one of these waxy things, and walk away. And this is one of the keys here. Do not try and start working with that. It has got to take some time to absorb that water and kind of become a little malleable. Because of the low gluten content in einkorn, it tends to stick to you instead of sticking to itself at the beginning. So you have to let this absorb, and there's a ton of baking terms out there, but I'm just going for a beginner one here. So just leave it, walk away, come back in 15 minutes. All right, 15 minutes is up, and have a little look here. You've got a shaggy dough that looks exactly the same as when you left it. However, a whole bunch of things have gone on inside there while we've been waiting. I'm gonna go get my hands wet. That is the #1 key here. Back in a second. All right, wet hands. And this is, in other bread making, they're gonna call this the stretch and folds. But what I want you to see here, let me grab this. What I want you to see here is that as I am just pulling it, just folding it over there, it is no longer crazy sticky. It's not staying on my hands a little bit very much. And if it does, just get your hands wet again. You're gonna get some dry stuff, but I just want you to kind of fold it over on itself. Just fold it over on itself a couple times. It's not, you're not gonna get this big, long, stretchy things like you may have done with stretch and fold, but what you're going to get is just a lump of dough that is no longer crazy sticky, and it's just starting to hydrate and it's starting to stick to itself. So just a few of those, get it kind of together a bit, and cover, back in another 15 minutes. All right, 15 more minutes, and we come back again here with wet hands this time. And now you can start to do maybe those traditional stretch and fold things. Now, there's no real super proper technique for this. Just what you want to do is kind of like fold the dough in over on itself. You should at this point be able to pick it up, get any of your last little bits there. You can even just like do it in the air, play with a bit of Play-Doh or something, or do it from the ground here. But what you're gonna notice is it's no longer quite so sticky. It's not sticking to your hands a little bit. It's becoming smoother. It's becoming more pliable. It's holding its own and be able to turn into a ball. And we're gonna let it sit for 15 more minutes before we come down for our final set of stretch and folds. All right, and we're back. And for our last and final set of stretch and folds, nice wet hands again, and get in there. And what you're gonna find is that you have already developed a lot of stretch there. Now, you're not gonna get any kind of window pane type thing in einkorn, but you are going to get a nice, pliable, stretchy dough here that is ready to go without really a lot of kneading at all. Now, after you've done your final set of stretches and folds and you want to shape it into a little bit of a ball, it goes back into your proofing bowl for 3 to 6 hours, depending really on the temperature in your room. If it's nice and warm and you've been cooking, then 3 hours is going to be fine. If it's a little bit cooler, leave it for 6 hours. I have even Pop this directly into the fridge, let it go for 24 or for another overnight for 12 hours if you want to get even a little bit more tang. But I find if you do it on a countertop at room temperature, you're going to get a little bit of a lighter loaf at the end. It will work fine both ways, just depending on how much time you've got and what your baking schedule looks like. So cover that up 3 to 6 hours on the countertop or in the fridge. You could do it again overnight if you aren't ready to bake it right now before it goes into your proofing basket. And it is 3 hours later. My kitchen's nice and warm because I've been doing a bunch of baking. So we have got our final first proof here. That looks great. Probably you're not going to get double in size, but you're going to get probably about 75% from your original one. Now I'm going to go in with my wet hands again. I'm going to get them extra wet. And you're just going to gently lift that out there. You don't want to be too rough with this because it's already got some nice air pockets and bubbles growing in there. And we're just going to shape our loaf. You can do this on a cutting board as you probably should, but you know what? I'm just going to do that in my hand to get a little bit of tension there. Just pull gently in from the bottom to get kind of a springy top there. Now, realizing that I have to do this again because this needs to go into a proofing basket of some sort. So whether you've got a Benetton or you've just got a mixing bowl with a tea towel in it, whatever works for you, it's great. You just need something that's going to let that rise up in the fridge a little bit. And because the einkorn is so sticky, you're going to want to dust this with something. And here's one of I did promise you 100% einkorn sourdough. I lied a little bit. I don't recommend using the einkorn flour as your dusting one because it's going to absorb some of the moisture from the loaf and it's just going to act as a glue and stick, and you're going to get a lot of tears on the top of your loaf there. So I'd recommend going in with some either rye flour, some bread flour, or I just grind up a little bit of white rice or brown rice and give it a generous dusting in your tea towel or in your Benetton there, just to prevent the sticking along the top. All right, get my hands wet again. There we go. And one more time, gently lift that in. Pull it into a little bit of a loaf. Shape that nicely to get a little bit of tension there. And then just flip it upside down into your Benetton or mixing bowl. You're ready to go. Cover it with some plastic wrap or aluminum foil. And that's going into your fridge for at least 12 hours. You can go up to 18 hours, no problem. Just depends on when you want to bake the next day. But that will go into a cold place and just develop a ton of flavor and start to rise a little bit. See you tomorrow. Okay, so for me, this is about 16 hours later, and we'll go grab the loaf from the fridge. There we go. Lift that up, and perfect. So you should be looking for not quite doubled. You're not going to get this giant elastic kind of spring that you would with other loaves. You're just going to get about, say, a 75% rise, because this is going to be a pretty heavy, good, solid sandwich loaf or loaf with soup or something like that. So, and you've probably seen this technique before. There's lots of ways you can just do this in the oven like a regular loaf. I'm going to do the classic Dutch oven method here, but you're going to take your loaf in your Benetton and just turn it out onto a piece of parchment. Like so. Oh, sometimes you get a little bit of a stick. Make sure you used a lot of rice flour. There we go. Perfect. And whoop, see if we can get that just like so. All right, With the Benetton, you get those nice little curls. It's going to look great. That white rice flour is going to give a cool little contrast in your final loaf, and you'll see. And while you're not going to generally get a giant explosion, you are going to get a bunch of growth. So get yourself a sharp knife or a bread lame or something like that, and just create a little expansion space there. I'm just gonna done a nice big half crescent. You can do whatever kind of thing you like, just so it has some room to expand and grow. Again, you're not gonna get giant lift or oven spring like you would with a classic loaf. All right, now, oven is at 450 degrees and the Dutch oven has been getting nice and warm in there. That is 230 Celsius. Sorry, I'm Canadian. We have a lot of complex issues with measurement systems. All right, screaming hot Dutch oven. Take your little sling, pop that in there. Lid on, and back into the oven, covered for half an hour at 450. All right, after 30 minutes, it smells so good in here. You have no idea. But we need to brown up that loaf a little bit. So we're gonna take the lid off the Dutch oven and see how it's coming along. Let's go in. Nice and steamy. Yeah. So you can see you're still getting a bunch of spring there and even an ear. That's nice. So pop that back in with the lid off, 20 minutes, and you'll have a perfect einkorn sourdough loaf. All right, time is up and let's check out that loaf of bread. Oh, that looks perfect. All right, beautiful, brown, crispy, crunchy. That is a gorgeous loaf of bread right there. So, no matter how tempted you are to carve into this right now, give it a little bit of time to rest. A couple hours is best. I probably won't be able to wait that long. See you shortly. All right, screw it, can't wait anymore. Let's get into that. All right. Yeah. So, as you can see, you're not gonna get that crazy giant open crumb structure that you might from a wheat bread, but you get a nice, lofty, soft one. This is cut into too early, but I don't care. It's so good. And my favorite part is right there. Now, great sandwich bread, great with soups, makes a great toast. This bread freezes amazingly, so don't be afraid to make a bunch and pop it in the freezer. Just pop it in the toaster. It comes back really, really nicely. Oh my God, so good. Oh, it's got this tangy, nutty flavor that you only get with einkorn. So even if you're just adding it, 10, 20% to your regular loaf, if you want a big jump, you're gonna get a bunch of extra nice flavor there, but the 100%, so good. So good.